The massive view screen in Earth's United Defense Command showed the approaching alien ships. Their sleek, crystalline forms glowed with strange blue light as they entered Earth's orbit. Captain James Walker stood straight, adjusting his uniform one last time. After years of preparation, humanity would finally meet the Galactic Council. The meeting room was grand, with tall windows showing Earth's curve below. Walker watched as the alien representatives walked in. Their leader, High Commander Vex, moved with fluid grace. His tall, slender form towered over the humans present. The other council members followed, each different in appearance, but sharing the same look of subtle superiority. "Welcome to Earth," Walker said, stepping forward. "We're honored to receive the Galactic Council's representatives." Vex's large eyes blinked slowly. "Yes, we have decided your species is finally ready for evaluation." His universal translator made his words clear, but couldn't hide the condescending tone. Walker kept his face neutral. He had trained for this moment. "We've prepared a presentation of Earth's defensive capabilities as requested." The lights dimmed, and holographic images appeared. Walker showed their newest ships, defense systems, and weapons. He took special pride in displaying their latest railgun technology, capable of launching projectiles at incredible speeds. A sound like clicking crystals filled the room. The council members were laughing. "Projectile weapons," Vex said, his voice full of amusement. "You mean you still throw small pieces of metal at your enemies?" More laughter followed. Walker felt his face grow warm, but kept his voice steady. "Our kinetic weapon systems are highly effective. A single shot from our main railgun can—" "Captain," Vex interrupted, raising a hand. "We abandoned such primitive methods thousands of years ago. Look." He touched a small device on his wrist. A shimmering energy shield appeared around him. "Even our personal shields can stop any physical object. Our ships use much stronger versions." Another council member, shorter but covered in iridescent scales, spoke up. "We use pure energy weapons, clean, efficient, and truly advanced." She created a small ball of plasma above her hand. "This is real power." Walker noticed something interesting. Every weapon they showed was energy-based. Every defense was designed to stop energy attacks. Not once did they mention kinetic barriers or physical armor. He filed this observation away carefully. "The Council has made its decision," Vex announced. "Earth will be granted provisional membership. However," he paused for effect, "you will not be permitted to join Council military operations until you have evolved beyond your current limitations." Walker wanted to argue but knew better. "We understand," he said. "Earth thanks the Council for this opportunity." After the meeting, Walker stood alone at the window, watching the Council ships depart. Their engines left trails of pure energy in the sky, beautiful but predictable. "Sir," his assistant, Tom Reed, approached. "Are you all right?" That meeting was rough. Walker smiled slightly. "Actually, I learned something very interesting today." "What's that, sir?" "They've forgotten the basics," Walker said. "All their weapons, all their defenses, they're designed to work against other energy weapons. Did you notice? Not a single physical armor plate or kinetic barrier in sight." Reed's eyes widened as he understood. "You think that's a weakness?" "I think," Walker said carefully, "that sometimes the old ways stick around for a reason. And I think we should keep developing our primitive weapons, just in case." He turned back to the window, watching the last Council ship vanish into the darkness of space. Their laughter still echoed in his mind, but it didn't bother him anymore. Walker had learned long ago that underestimating someone was the first step toward defeat. The Council had just made that mistake with humanity. "Document everything from today's meeting," he ordered, "and get me a secure line to Earth Defense Command. We need to discuss some upgrades to our railgun projects." The Council might laugh at human weapons now, but Walker had a feeling that someday they might need those primitive guns. And when that day came, humanity would be ready. 6 months after Earth joined the Galactic Council, Captain Walker sat in his office reading reports from across Council space. His terminal blinked with urgent messages, each more concerning than the last. "Another attack, sir," Tom Reed said, rushing into the office. "Colony world of New Haven. Same pattern as the others." Walker pulled up the report. The images showed destroyed buildings and strange marks on the ground. "How many dead?" "Over 2,000. The Council ships in orbit." Reed paused, swallowing hard. They didn't even scratch the attackers. Walker leaned back in his chair, thinking. This was the 5th attack in 2 months. Each time, the enemy ships appeared out of nowhere, ignored energy weapons completely, and vanished without a trace. "Show me the shield data again," he said. The holographic display filled with numbers. The Council's energy shields had worked perfectly during the attack. They stopped every energy blast fired at them. But the enemy hadn't used energy weapons. "Look here," Walker pointed. "The enemy ships just passed right through the shields, like they weren't even there." "But that's impossible," Reed said. "The Council's shield technology is the most advanced in the galaxy." Walker smiled grimly. "Advanced at stopping energy, yes. But what if these attackers are using something else?" The emergency meeting of the Council was exactly as Walker expected. Lots of arguing, no solutions. "We must increase shield strength," one member shouted. "Add more plasma cannons," another suggested. High Commander Vex looked worried for the first time since Walker had met him. "Our best weapons do nothing against their hull. It's like they absorb energy somehow." Walker stood up. The Council chamber went quiet. "Earth offers its help," he said clearly. "We have experience with alternative weapon systems that might—" "Please, Captain," Vex interrupted. "This is not the time for primitive solutions. We need advanced technology to solve this crisis." Walker sat down slowly. Under the table, his hands tightened into fists. More people would die because of their pride. Later that night, Walker made a call to Earth Defense Command. "Begin Operation Shadow Shield immediately," he ordered, "and double the production of railgun ammunition." "Sir," the commander asked, "the Council hasn't approved." "The Council won't approve," Walker said firmly. "But they won't need to approve if we're right about what's coming." Over the next few weeks, more attacks came. Bigger ones. The Council's mighty fleets fired their energy weapons uselessly at enemies that seemed to ignore them completely. Fear spread through Council space. Walker worked late into the night, studying attack patterns. He noticed something everyone else had missed. The enemy ships had armor, real physical armor. It wasn't energy shields keeping them safe. It was thick plates of some strange material that absorbed energy weapons completely. "They're not invincible," he told Reed one evening. "They're just prepared for the wrong kind of fight." "Should we tell the Council?" Walker shook his head. "They won't listen. Not yet. But they will." He looked at the latest production reports from Earth. Railguns, coil guns, and missile systems were being built in secret. Traditional weapons, simple weapons, weapons that fired real projectiles. "How many more attacks do you think it will take?" Reed asked quietly. "Too many," Walker said. "But when they finally ask for help, we'll be ready." He looked at the star map showing the pattern of attacks. They were getting closer to the Council's core worlds. Soon, very soon, the Council would learn that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. "Send word to all Earth ships," he ordered. "Battle stations and full combat readiness. The real fight is coming, and we're the only ones ready for it." Outside his window, Earth's defense fleet hung in orbit. Their railguns were loaded and ready. Somewhere out there, an enemy was coming that energy weapons couldn't stop. But Walker smiled, knowing that humanity's primitive weapons might just save the galaxy. The warning came at midnight Earth time. Walker was woken by alarms blaring through United Defense Command. He ran to the control room, still pulling on his uniform jacket. "Report," he shouted. Reed's face was pale as he pointed to the main screen. "Thousands of ships, sir. They just appeared at the edge of Council space. The Council's long-range scanners show they're unlike anything we've seen before. The screen showed massive ships that looked almost alive. Their hulls were a strange mix of metal and what appeared to be living tissue. They moved like a swarm of angry insects, destroying everything in their path. "Play the Council distress calls," Walker ordered. The room filled with panic-filled voices. Energy weapons have no effect. Shields failing. They're eating through our hulls. Fall back. Fall. Static. Walker watched as 3 Council worlds fell in less than an hour. The mighty Council fleet, with all its advanced energy weapons, might as well have been shooting sparklers at a tank. "They're calling themselves the Harvesters," Reed said quietly. "Because they consume everything they defeat, turn it into more ships." The emergency council meeting was chaos. The normally elegant chamber was filled with shouting representatives. High Commander Vex looked like he had aged years in a single day. 4 billion dead. Someone screamed. 4 billion in just 6 hours. Our most powerful plasma cannons do nothing. Another added. They absorb everything we throw at them. Walker sat quietly, watching. He had known this day would come. He had prepared for it, but he had to wait for the right moment. Vex's voice cut through the chaos. "The Harvester's hulls are made of some kind of organic metallic compound. It absorbs energy weapons completely. We have no defense against them." "The Great Council fleet," someone said bitterly. "Useless against real monsters." Walker stood up slowly. The room didn't quiet down this time. They were too scared to notice him. He walked to the central display and pressed a button on his wrist computer. The image changed to show a recording from Earth's testing grounds. A simple railgun fired at a chunk of material similar to the Harvester's hull. The metal slug tore straight through it. Now the room went silent. "While you were laughing at our primitive weapons," Walker said calmly, "we were studying the attackers. Their hulls absorb energy, yes, but they still follow the basic laws of physics. A solid piece of metal moving at high speed doesn't care about energy absorption. It just hits. Hard." "Impossible," someone whispered, but there was hope in their voice. Another video played. Earth's newest defense fleet, armed with upgraded railguns and missile systems. "We have ships ready to fight. Real weapons that can hurt them. But you have to stop being proud and start being smart." Vex stood up shakily. "You knew this would happen." "I knew something like this might happen," Walker corrected. "When I saw how completely you'd abandoned physical weapons, I knew someone would eventually take advantage of that weakness." A new alarm sounded. Everyone froze. "The Harvesters," Reed announced. "They've reached the Council's inner worlds. 3 more systems lost." Walker looked at the Council members. "We can help, but you have to let us fight our way. No more laughing at primitive weapons. No more pride. The galaxy is burning. And right now, humanity's old-fashioned guns are your only hope." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Vex walked over to Walker and did something no council member had ever done before. He bowed. "Help us," Vex said simply. "Please." Walker nodded and activated his comm. "This is Captain Walker to all Earth forces. Operation Thunderstrike is now active. Launch all ships. Show these Harvesters what primitive weapons can do." The war for survival was about to begin, and humanity's forgotten weapons would lead the way. The capital world of the Galactic Council, Crystal Prime, shimmered like a jewel in space. Its famous crystal towers had stood for 10,000 years. Now, they were about to fall. Harvester ships entering the system. The Council's defense commander's voice shook with fear. 30. No, 50. Over 100 ships. Walker stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Thunder, watching the Harvester fleet approach. He hadn't been invited to this fight. The Council was still too proud to officially ask for help, but he hadn't come to ask permission. "All Earth ships, battle formation," he ordered. "Hold position just outside the combat zone. Wait for my signal." The Council's defense fleet was massive. Thousands of ships, all armed with the most powerful energy weapons ever created. They fired everything they had at the approaching harvesters. It was like throwing matches into the ocean. The harvester ships didn't even slow down. Their organic metallic hulls absorbed every energy blast, growing stronger with each hit. They moved through the Council's defense line like it wasn't there. "Sir," Reed said from his station, "the Council chamber is calling an emergency session. They're actually begging for you to attend." Walker nodded grimly. "Keep our ships ready. I'll be back soon." The Council chamber was different now. The elegant halls were filled with frightened people running in all directions. The grand meeting room, usually so orderly, was chaos. Council members shouted over each other, some crying, some angry, all afraid. Walker walked calmly to the center of the room. He carried a simple metal case. "The capital is falling." Someone screamed. "Our strongest weapons do nothing." Silence. High Commander Vex's voice cut through the noise. He looked at Walker with desperate eyes. "Captain Walker, you have something to say." Walker opened his case and took out a small piece of metal. "This is a bullet," he said simply. "An old design, barely changed in 500 years. Simple, primitive, and exactly what we need." He pulled up a hologram showing the test results from Earth's weapons. The harvesters absorb energy, but they can't stop physical objects. Their hull is strong, yes, but it follows the laws of physics. And physics says that if you hit something hard enough with a solid object, it breaks. But our sensors show their hulls are stronger than any material we know. The Council scientist protested. Walker smiled. "Strong against energy. But watch this." He played a video from an Earth battle group that had secretly engaged a harvester scout ship. The railguns fired, launching metal slugs at incredible speeds. The harvester's hull, which had ignored energy weapons, cracked and broke under the impact. The room went completely quiet. "Sometimes," Walker said softly, "the old ways are the best ways. Earth has been mass-producing ammunition and updating our weapon designs. We have ships ready to fight, but you have to officially ask for our help. No more pride. No more looking down on primitive weapons. The choice is yours." A massive explosion shook the building. Through the windows, they could see harvester ships entering the atmosphere. Vex stood up. His voice shook, but his words were clear. "Captain James Walker, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally request Earth's military assistance. He swallowed hard. "We need your primitive weapons." Walker was already on his comm unit. "All Earth ships, this is Captain Walker. Operation Thunderstrike is go. Show them what human ingenuity can do." The Earth fleet moved into position. Their railguns gleamed in the starlight. "All ships, open fire," Walker commanded. The sky filled with streaks of light as thousands of metal slugs launched at incredible speeds. The harvesters, unstoppable until now, began to break apart under the barrage. From the Council chamber window, Vex watched in amazement. "They're actually falling," he whispered. "Your primitive weapons are working." Walker smiled. "Never underestimate the basics, Commander. Now, let's save your capital, and then we can talk about upgrading your fleet with some proper guns." The battle for Crystal Prime had begun, and humanity's primitive weapons were leading the charge. The battle for Crystal Prime lasted 3 days. When it was over, the harvester ships lay broken in orbit, their mysterious hulls shattered by simple metal slugs fired at incredible speeds. But Walker knew this was just the beginning. "Status report," he commanded from the bridge of the Thunder. Reed brought up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked harvester-controlled systems, while blue showed safe territories. There was far too much red. "The good news is that our railgun designs work perfectly," Reed said. "The bad news is that we don't have enough ships to protect everyone." Walker smiled. "Not yet, but that's about to change." He turned to face their newest crew member, a Council weapons engineer named Trell. How are the modifications coming? Trell looked up from his workstation, his eyes bright with excitement. It's amazing how simple your weapons are, Captain. We've already converted 3 council ships to use railgun technology. They're ready for testing. On the main screen, Walker watched as a modified council ship approached a destroyed harvester vessel for target practice. The ship's elegant lines now had solid railgun barrels mounted on its hull. "Fire when ready," Walker ordered. The council ship fired its new weapons. Metal slugs shot out at tremendous speed, tearing through the harvester wreck like paper. The council crew cheered over the comm system. 200 more ships are lined up for modification, Trell reported. We can have them ready in 3 days. Walker nodded. Good, because we're taking the fight to them. The next week was a blur of activity. Council shipyards worked around the clock, adding human-designed weapons to their fleet. Every ship got at least 2 railguns and a missile system. The Council's energy weapons stayed too. Walker believed in having multiple options. High Commander Vex visited the Thunder to review the battle plans. He looked different now, humbler, but also more determined. "Your strategy is unusual," Vex said, studying the attack plan. "Small groups hitting multiple targets at once. Harvesters are strong, but not very smart," Walker explained. "They expect everyone to use energy weapons. When we hit them with physical projectiles, they don't know how to respond. By attacking many places at once, we keep them confused." The first major counterattack began at dawn Earth time. 50 battle groups, each led by an Earth ship, struck at harvester-held worlds. The results were beyond anyone's expectations. Victory in the Centauri sector, Reed announced, marking another system clear on the map. Victory in the spiral arm. Victory in the outer rim. Walker watched as more and more red dots turned blue. The harvester ships, so unstoppable against energy weapons, had no defense against good old-fashioned kinetic impacts. "Send the next wave," Walker ordered. "Keep them off balance." In the ship's manufacturing bay, Council engineers worked alongside human technicians, learning the art of primitive warfare. They were amazed by the simplicity and effectiveness of physical ammunition. "All these years," Trell said, holding up a railgun slug, "we thought advancement meant making things more complicated. We forgot that sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." By the end of the week, the harvesters had lost control of 30 systems. Their seemingly invincible fleet was being torn apart by weapons they had never considered a threat. "Captain," Reed called out. "Message from Earth Defense Command. They're sending the new heavy railgun ships. They'll be here in 2 days." Walker smiled. The new ships carried guns 3 times the size of normal railguns. Against the harvesters' organic metallic hulls, they would be devastating. "Inform all battle groups," he ordered. "When the heavy guns arrive, we start the main offensive. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity's primitive weapons can really do." On the main screen, another harvester ship exploded under railgun fire. The Council ships in formation around it fired their new weapons with perfect accuracy. Human innovation and Council technology were finally working together, and the enemy was learning a hard lesson about underestimating primitive weapons. The new heavy railgun ships were beautiful in a brutal way. Each one carried a main gun that could fire a projectile the size of a small car at speeds that made light look slow. Walker watched from the Thunder's bridge as they moved into formation. "All ships report ready," Reed announced. "The Council fleet is in position. Operation Great Push is ready to begin." Walker looked at his tactical display. 500 ships, a mix of Earth vessels and modified Council craft, all armed with humanity's primitive weapons. They faced the heart of harvester territory, where thousands of enemy ships waited. "Send the signal," Walker ordered. "All ships, commence firing." Space lit up with the flash of railguns and missile launches. The harvester ships, caught off guard by the massive assault, tried to respond with their usual tactics. They activated their energy-absorbing hulls, expecting the usual Council energy weapons. Instead, they met a wall of metal traveling at incredible speeds. Direct hits across their front line. Reed called out, "Their formations are breaking." The heavy railgun ships fired their main weapons. The massive slugs tore through multiple harvester ships at once, creating gaps in their defense. Smaller ships followed through these gaps, firing conventional railguns and missiles. On the bridge of his command ship, High Commander Vex watched in amazement. "Look at how they run," he said. "These unstoppable monsters, running from simple metal projectiles." The battle lasted hours. When it was over, the largest harvester fleet ever assembled lay in ruins. But Walker didn't celebrate yet. He knew this was just the beginning of the final push. "All ships, prepare for Phase 2, he ordered. "We're taking back the occupied worlds." Over the next few days, the combined Earth Council fleet moved from system to system. On each world, they found the same thing. Harvester ships completely unprepared for physical weapons. The enemy had evolved to be perfect against energy weapons, but that same evolution had left them vulnerable to older, simpler attacks. In the ship's science lab, Council scientists studied captured harvester debris. Trell made an interesting discovery. Their hull material, he explained to Walker, it's designed to absorb and redirect energy. But this makes it brittle against physical impacts. They sacrificed basic protection for specialized defense. "They forgot the basics," Walker said, "just like the Council did." The liberation of occupied worlds continued. Earth factories worked overtime producing ammunition, while Council shipyards kept adding railguns to their vessels. What had started as a desperate measure was becoming the new standard in space warfare. On the 40th day of the Great Push, they reached the Harvester staging area, a massive space station where they built their ships. "This is it," Walker told his fleet. "Take out their production facility, and we end this war." The battle that followed was the largest of the war. Thousands of ships on both sides. But this time, every Council ship carried human weapons. Every captain knew how to use them. The heavy railgun ships led the charge, their massive weapons punching holes through the station's defenses. Smaller ships followed, launching missiles and railgun shots at any harvester ship that tried to stop them. "Their main reactor is exposed," Reed shouted. "One good shot." Walker didn't hesitate. "All ships with heavy railguns, target that reactor." Fire. 20 massive slugs hit the reactor simultaneously. The harvester station erupted in a massive explosion, taking hundreds of their ships with it. As the light from the explosion faded, silence fell across the fleet. Then cheering erupted over every comm channel. Council ships and Earth vessels celebrated together, their crews united in victory. "Send word to all sectors," Walker ordered. "The harvester threat is broken. The Great Push has succeeded." He looked at his tactical display, now showing more blue sectors than red. Victory was close, and it had come not through advanced technology, but through humanity's determination to keep the old ways alive alongside the new. 3 months after the destruction of the Harvester staging area, Captain Walker stood in the Grand Council chamber again. This time, he wasn't an unwanted guest. He was the hero of the hour. "The last Harvester stronghold fell yesterday," he reported to the assembled council. "Their threat is officially over." The chamber erupted in applause. Council members who had once laughed at primitive weapons now stood in respect for the human who had saved their civilization. High Commander Vex stepped forward, holding a crystal staff, the highest symbol of Council authority. "Captain James Walker," he announced, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The Council has made a historic decision." Walker stood straight as Vex continued. "Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges. Furthermore," Vex smiled slightly, "we are creating a new position, Chief of Military Innovation, and we want you to fill it." Walker blinked in surprise. No human had ever held a high council position before. "There's more," Vex said. "The Council has voted to require all member worlds to maintain both energy and kinetic weapon systems. We will never again make the mistake of relying too heavily on a single type of technology. In the shipyards orbiting Crystal Prime, the changes were already visible. New ships under construction carried both energy weapons and railguns. Council engineers worked alongside human teachers, learning the art of ballistic warfare that their civilization had forgotten. The Council Military Academy has also been reformed, Vex announced. All cadets will now study Earth's military doctrine. They will learn that true advancement means keeping the best of the old while developing the new. Walker thought back to that first meeting, when the Council had laughed at human weapons. Now, those same primitive guns were standard equipment on every Council ship. Captain Walker, Reed called from the back of the chamber. The Earth Defense Force is calling. They want to show you something. The main screen lit up to show Earth's orbital shipyards. A new class of ship was under construction, one that combined the best of Council and human technology. Sleek energy weapons sat alongside massive railguns. Advanced shields protected thick armor plate. The first of the new Thunderchild class, Reed explained. Council energy tech combined with human ballistic weapons. They're calling it the perfect hybrid. Not perfect, Walker corrected with a smile. Just balanced, like all good things should be. Later that evening, Walker stood at his favorite window in the Council Tower, looking out at the stars. Trell joined him, carrying a small box. Our latest design, Trell said excitedly, opening the box to reveal a new type of ammunition. Council energy technology combined with human ballistic principles. We're calling it the hybrid round. Walker picked up one of the shells. It looked like a normal railgun round, but he could feel a subtle energy pulse within it. The Council has learned its lesson, Trell continued. We thought advancement meant abandoning the old ways. Now we understand that true progress means building on our foundations, not forgetting them. A fleet of ships passed by the window. Earth ships and Council vessels flying together in formation. Their weapons were different, but their purpose was the same, protecting civilization from whatever threats might come next. Ready for your first day as Chief of Military Innovation tomorrow? Trell asked. Walker nodded. There's a lot of work to do. We need to make sure no one ever forgets this lesson. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. And sometimes, Trell added, the best way is to combine the old and the new. As night fell over Crystal Prime, Walker thought about the future. The galaxy had changed. The Council had changed. And it all started because someone had laughed at human guns. Send a message to Earth, he told Reed. Tell them the next generation of defenders will be ready. And they'll have every weapon they need. Old and new, simple and advanced. Because that's how humanity does things. That's how we've always done things. The stars twinkled in response, shining on a galaxy forever changed by humanity's primitive wisdom.